The silent patient. The call came at 3:17 a.m. Dr. Lillian Graves had worked enough night shifts at Blackwood Memorial to know that no good news ever came after midnight. But when the phone rang, her exhaustion couldn't override instinct. She picked up. Code Gray, West Wing, 4th floor. Immediate response requested. The voice was unfamiliar, too calm, too smooth. Code Gray meant a combative patient, but there were no patients on the 4th floor. Not anymore. That ward had been closed for years. Lillian's shoes squeaked against the linoleum as she stepped out of the elevator. The air was thicker here, stale with the scent of antiseptic and something else, something old, like wet earth and rust. The hallway stretched before her, half lit by flickering fluorescence. At the far end, a gurney sat abandoned, its straps hanging loose, shredded at the edges. She shouldn't be here, but she moved forward anyway. A draft whispered past her, carrying a sound, breathing, not her own, too slow, too deliberate. Lillian turned. The hallway was empty. The next night, the scratching started. It came from inside the walls, a skittering, insistent sound, like fingers dragging across plaster. Lillian pressed her ear to the cold surface, and for a moment, the scratching stopped. Then something knocked back. She recoiled, heart hammering. When she checked the security feed the next morning, the screen showed her standing in the hallway at 3:03 a.m., eyes closed, mouth moving like she was speaking. But she didn't remember waking up. The records room was buried in the basement, a maze of filing cabinets coated in dust. Lillian's flashlight beam cut through the dark as she searched for Project Lazarus. She found it in a drawer marked Rastatad, patient names, dates, and one phrase stamped in red, subject unresponsive, proceeding with neural reactivation. Photographs spilled out, bodies on tables, their chests split open, wires snaking into their skulls. And at the edge of one frame, a shadowed figure watching. Its mouth was sewn shut. The PA system crackled to life. Find the teeth. A voice whispered. Lillian followed the sound to the morgue. The drawers were all closed. Except one, a corpse sat upright, its jaw unhinged, gums bare and bloody. Something had taken its teeth. And then, from behind her, a wet, ragged breath. The elevator doors slid shut. Lillian pressed the button for the first floor. Nothing happened. The lights dimmed. A handprint smeared across the inside of the glass, not hers. The elevator began to descend, past the basement, past the sub-levels, down into the dark. The elevator groaned as it descended further than Blackwood Memorial should have allowed. The air turned thick, metallic like the scent of old blood. Lillian's breath came in short, panic bursts, her fingers clawing at the control panel. But the buttons were dead. The elevator stopped. The doors slid open with a slow, grinding whine. Beyond them stretched a corridor she had never seen before. The walls were lined with rusted IV stands, their bags still full of a dark, viscous fluid. The floor was sticky underfoot, pulling at her shoes with each step. And at the far end, a single door stood slightly ajar. A voice, soft, distorted, drifted from within. "Doctor, we've been waiting." The room was an operating theater, but not like any Lillian had ever worked in. The surgical table was stained brown with age, the restraints frayed and stiff with dried blood. Tools lay scattered across a tray, bone saws, rib spreaders, needles threaded with black silk. And on the wall, a single line of text. Scrawled in what looked like charcoal, "Artid oko ur vices, now uiors." A shadow moved in the corner. Lillian turned just as the door slammed shut behind her. The first hand grabbed her wrist cold. Too strong, she screamed, wrenching back, but another hand clamped over her mouth, fingers pressing into her cheeks. Shapes emerged from the dark, figures in tattered hospital gowns, their skin gray, their lips stitched together with crude, knotted thread. They pulled her toward the table. One of them raised a scalpel. Its blade glinted in the dim light. Lillian woke up in her office. Morning light streamed through the blinds. Her head throbbed, her mouth dry. Had it been a dream? Then she saw them on her desk, arranged in a neat, grinning row, 32 human teeth. And a note written in shaky script. "Thank you for the donation." That night, the call came again. "Code Gray, West Wing, 4th floor." This time Lillian didn't answer. But the phone kept ringing and ringing. And then a whisper right against her ear, "Will come to you." Lillian's hands shook as she stared at the teeth on her desk. The morning light did nothing to soften their yellowed edges or the dark stains clinging to their roots. She reached out, then jerked her hand back when she swore she felt one twitch. A knock at her office door made her gasp. "Dr. Graves." It was Nurse Wilkins, her brow furrowed. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Lillian quickly swept the teeth into her desk drawer. "Just a long night." Wilkins hesitated. "Well, the police are here." Again. Another patient went missing from the geriatric ward. That makes 3 this month. Lillian's blood ran cold. Which room? 413, 4th floor. The elevator ride up felt like a death sentence. Lillian had avoided the 4th floor since that first night, but now she had no choice. The police needed her to confirm the missing patient's records. The doors opened. The hallway was different. The lights were brighter. The gurney was gone. A fresh coat of paint covered the walls, and nurses bustled about like nothing was wrong. Dr. Graves, a young intern, waved her over. "We were just about to call you. Hargrove is stable, but his vitals are..." Lillian froze. "Mr. Hargrove, the missing patient." The intern blinked. "Missing. He's been here all night. See for yourself." Room 413's door was open. Inside, and an elderly man sat up in bed smiling. His lips were perfectly normal, but when he opened his mouth to speak, no teeth. Lillian fled to the records room. She needed proof. Proof that the fourth floor had been closed. Proof that the disappearances were real. But the files were gone. In their place was a single fresh folder. Inside, a photo of her asleep at her desk, mouth slightly open. And on the back in red ink, "While you were to our..." That night, Lillian barricaded herself in her apartment. She poured a glass of wine, turned on every light, tried to convince herself it was stress, sleep deprivation, anything but the impossible. Then her bathroom faucet turned on by itself. The water ran dark, and when she looked closer, tiny white fragments swirled in the current. She stumbled back, crashing into her dresser. The mirror above it rattled, and in the reflection a figure stood behind her, tall, dressed in a stained hospital gown, its lips parted, revealing empty gums. Then it smiled, and Lillian's teeth began to ache. Lillian's scream never left her throat. The moment the figure's skeletal fingers touched her shoulders, her jaw locked shut. A terrible pressure built in her gums, as if her teeth were being slowly twisted from below. She clawed at her mouth, nails scraping enamel, but the pain only sharpened crack. Her left canine split down the middle. The figure leaned closer, its breath smelling of formaldehyde and wet earth. A rusted pair of dental forceps appeared in its hand, the metal pitted with age. "Don't fight," it whispered. But the voice wasn't in the room. It was inside her skull, vibrating behind her eyes. "You signed the consent form?" Lillian tried to scream again as the forceps closed around her broken tooth. She woke up in her bed, morning light. Birds chirping. Her tongue surged to probe her teeth, all intact. A nightmare, she gasped, laughing weakly. Then she saw the envelope on her pillow. Inside, a single ivory molar, and a receipt stamped with Blackwood Memorial's logo at 1-00 Deposit BALNCD 31 point. The hospital corridors stretched longer that day. Lillian kept seeing them. Figures in tattered gowns, always at the edge of her vision. They never approached, never spoke, just watched. Nurse Wilkins cornered her by the pharmacy. "You need to sleep, doctor. You're pale as ah." She froze, staring at Lillian's mouth. "Your gums are bleeding." Lillian touched her lips. Her fingers came away red. From the PA system, a voice crackled, "Dr. Graves to operating theater 4. Immediate extraction required." But Blackwood Memorial only had 3 theaters. The basement door was locked. It had always been locked, yet now the chain hung loose, the padlock unlatched. The stairwell beyond exhaled a breath of frigid, chemical-scented air. Lillian's pager buzzed. "P.O. Akepio your P.E.N. Sempasang." Each step downward made her teeth throb. The walls were lined with yellowed X-rays, dozens of jaws, all missing the same teeth. One image showed a familiar face, her own. At the bottom, a flickering bulb illuminated a steel door, etched into its surface. "Elazuras Tirael of 44 yards of diameter." It turned on its own. Inside, the surgical table was prepped, the restraints were open, and the instruments were moving by themselves. The moment Lillian crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind her. The sound echoed like a tomb ceiling. Cold fluorescent light flickered overhead, illuminating the nightmare in pieces, stainless steel trays, buzzing bone saws, and the thing waiting for her in the corner. It sat upright on the operating table, its skeletal fingers steepled. A tattered surgeon's mask hung loose around its neck, revealing lips sewn together with black wire. Its eyes were milky blind, but it turned its head as she entered, as if it could smell her fear. "You're late, doctor." The voice came from everywhere at once. The walls, the instruments, the hollows of her own skull. Lillian's legs gave out, but before she could collapse, unseen hands caught her. They dragged her forward, her shoes squeaking against blood-stained tile. The thing on the table tilted its head. 31 left to pay. Lillian's scream was cut short as forceps wrenched her jaw open. 6 months later, the new intern at Blackwood Memorial adjusted his scrubs as he stepped off the elevator. The 4th floor was quiet tonight, just the hum of machines and the occasional snore from a sleeping patient. Then the PA system crackled. "Code Gray, West Wing." 4th floor. The intern frowned. There was no West Wing, but the call repeated, more insistent. He followed the sound to room 413. The door was ajar. Inside, a lone patient sat upright in bed, back turned to him. "Mom, do you need..." The figure turned. The intern choked, her smile stretched too wide, lips straining around too many teeth, each one mismatched, jagged, clearly not her own. She opened her mouth. And the last thing the intern heard was the sound of knocking. From inside his own jaw, the envelope arrived at dawn. No stamp, no return address, just a name, Dr. Lil Ilingjarvis inside a single folded note. "Thank you for your service." and beneath it, nestled in tissue paper, a perfect set of 32 teeth.